can't go to the store and buy alcohol.
So it's gotta be the.
This is, no, this one is empty.
Yeah, this way.
These are good for other things.
Is there money in the improvement fund to make up this extra money?
I don't know. You'll have to ask him.
Things like that.
I do not know the answer to that one.
I had to order it.
Committee will come to order. Will Commissioner, staff, and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Limited public comment at this time. Any member of the public wishing to address the board may do so for up to 3 minutes. Hearing no public comment, we will move ahead. The first item is from the Information Technology Department, David Schinnever. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase the server infrastructure solution as presented in a quote from Dell Incorporated for a total cost of $213,576.24, with funds to be paid from the Data Processing Fund, and to increase the budget line item E63725898050 Computer Capital in the Data Processing Fund by $113,577.00.
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported by Smelker. Discussion. Good morning, David.
Good morning. I asked Ben ahead of time if you could all indulge me for 10 or 15 minutes. We have a couple new commissioners, and I thought, since it was a short agenda today, to take advantage and give you a little update of the IT department, where we are and what we're doing. So, yeah, okay. So anyway, up on the board, for those of you who may not be, we've had a few staff changes in the past couple of years. Those are the people that make it all work. Our latest hire is Ivan Christopher. He's the GIS technician. He's been 7 months on the job. We're very, very excited about where that's going again. Since that program took a couple-year hiatus, we have an open house coming up that I think you all should have received emails on. So we're looking forward to that next month and kind of rebooting that whole program. He's excited about it. So that's kind of a division of what we do. And then there's 3 other people there that kind of run the show, and that's our staff. Solid team. A couple of years ago, we redefined roles. We moved around some offices, and we're just settling in. But as everyone knows, the past couple of years, totally unstable, and we've had to be very adaptive in terms of remote workers and all kinds of situations coming up that you need to respond with minutes, within an hour. Try to keep everybody productive as possible. So it's been a challenge, but like I said, great team. We're also very engaged on a statewide basis. I always have been a big advocate of conferences, bulletin boards, online, state agencies. We're engaged with those people, and it's very valuable because in many cases, in dealing with court issues, prosecutor issues, most recently, we're all in the same boat. So we don't have to go to those situations without support. So this is just a little cheat sheet here that I wrote up. County departments, obviously, you're familiar with all those that we support. Okay, she's got it. There are some other agencies that we have some agreements with, which you may not be aware of. They are listed there as well. Some of those agencies we see once every 6 months, and some of them we talk to almost every day. So it just kind of varies. So big agencies like the Road Commission, that would be a weekly thing where we're supporting them, where Syria Township just now and then has a question or needs some support. So I expect that to grow in the future. It has, we started out with this supporting auxiliary agencies just maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and you can see the list has grown out. So, in terms of initiatives for our department, aside from just supporting the software from all the other departments, today why I'm here to talk about our server storage network and infrastructure. It's the heartbeat of all the county computing. That's why I'm here today, to request the replacement of that. A close second, or maybe first, is network security. And that is governed by what we have, a network security policy that generally I bring here every year with changes. That kind of governs how we deal with network security. That is a huge animal, ongoing every day, mostly governed and managed by the young man in the back row there, whom you all know. County website, obviously, met. Ward takes care of our county website. We have email server, purchasing. We've kind of become the de facto purchasing department for the county, because I'm the one with the Amazon business account. So it used to be just things that plugged in, but now it's all kinds of other things we're ordering through our office, which is fine. Telephony, that's telephones on desks. That area of what we do continues to grow. Last week, we took on the COA as a customer, if you will, and installed our phone system at the COA. And so now they are 4 digits away from everyone else in the county circle.
Great.
So it's kind of a big deal. They're very excited about it. They got new phones on the desks. Their traditional phone bill goes away. And kind of we're all on the same page now from a phone, email, voicemail standpoint.
They're on berrycounty.org email system.
Yes. Asset management is something that doesn't mean much to people outside our department, but it's big for our department. That's just keeping track of everything you have. And it's an ongoing, tedious task. Obviously, help desk. Leslie, Leslie is our kind of first line help desk person, first person to answer the phones. Asset management is Mr. Ward, and obviously GIS, which is a whole nother sub. I mentioned that's Ivan. So that's kind of the breakdown of our department. Just for numbers' sake, we have approximately 35 virtual servers. Those are servers that live on another, without getting into too much detail, live on another box. And 10 physical, that's an actual box that you can look at and say that's a server and that serves information. Approximately, we support 250 desktops. Well, you can see the list there. And we have 3 broadband providers to provide redundancy. So our principal one is MEI out of Delton, Berry County Telephone, MEI, same thing. In town here, our backup is WOW. And excuse me. I plan.
It's WOW right now.
It's actually Walgreens. Because you need certain. And AT&T out at COA provides some backup for us out there. So one line is never enough. And then very briefly, well, if you could go to the next. The reason this is really small, this is our network map, and I for legitimate security reasons, I really don't want you to read it. But it is an accurate presentation of our network. Mm-hmm. And each one of those boxes is a different location. And all told, so we have 17 locations we support across the county. The green lines are communication over the internet. Brown lines are fiber. Black lines are Ethernet, just regular blue computer cable. and red is Wi-Fi, and the little clouds there represent the internet. So the blue boxes underneath in these sections are called switches or routers or firewalls, and they're those boxes deliver the signals out to individual PCs. And then there are access points, and there are Wi-Fi access points. This is the work of a mad scientist who's also sitting behind you.
Yeah. Aaron Staines
Aaron Staines.
is a valued member of the Berry County team,
And if
we
you're
thank him.
if you are really want to get into the weeds here, I brought him along. He can sit here and we can talk about how this all works. But it does work. It works well. So and it's something that it's grown. It's just kind of morphed and evolved, and you can't really set a plan for 3 years. This is what it's going to look like because we don't know who we're going to serve and how we're going to serve them, and what state regulations are going to prevent us from doing certain things. So that is a quick, brief catch-up. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them or try to. Or
What are the big initiatives that your department is working on right now?
today, this is a big one today. The court, the work over at the Courts and Law Building has been a big initiative for us.
Yeah.
FOC, the hearing rooms, lots of wiring. Another big initiative right now, that was the end of last year, it spilled over into this year, was a new backup, emergency backup and retention system. That's coming online hopefully within a couple weeks. What else we got going on, Aaron? Pardon? SEAM. Okay, so this is a big one from Aaron's perspective. We've also got through the capital budget purchase of a SEAM. What that is a box that records essentially all incoming and outgoing traffic. It records all that in logs and puts it in a massive database. And whenever there's an anomaly, it can detect the anomaly, and then you can do forensics on it. So it's a really cool toy for somebody who's in network security, but it's also extremely valuable from a forensic standpoint if you do get hacked.
Aaron, how many times do we get probed our network?
Daily?
Daily?
Oh yeah, multiple times.
Multiple times a day?
We block a lot of top level countries like China and Russia, so like they're automatically dropped, but it's not uncommon to see, multiple, just automated bot attacks on, different web servers and things like that.
Multiple times a day from different countries?
Yeah, I would say probably on average once a week, we'll have an end user download something, and I'm not totally innocently download something or be on a website or through email, and it will try to scream out to its mothership. And we have good security software that then notifies Aaron and myself, and then we send somebody there as quickly as possible to unplug it, bring it back to our shop, and we wipe it and start all over again. This happened just a couple days ago. So that is probably a weekly occurrence, and it's just the reality of our business.
Questions, comments from other commissioners? Commissioner Smelker.
Just a comment, when I open up my laptop here, pad, and I get a fair amount, maybe half of mine is quarantined. I don't know who come up with that, but thank you very much.
That's part of the software package.
It's just people that I have no idea who they are. And I don't have to deal with them.
Well, and so there's different categories of spam, and quarantine is one. There's another category of just outright spam that doesn't even get to that point. So generally, about what we're seeing is 85% of all the mail that comes into our server is junk. 85%. That's a pretty standard number. So, what we always say in our business is that the bad guys need to get lucky and get through once, but we need to block 100% of the time. So it's just an ongoing challenge. at any level of government when you have an external-facing system, which we do.
85%. Shocking. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, let's move ahead with the request.
Yes, the request. Okay, so this is why we're here. This is our big initiative. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was probably sitting right here, and I had requested what's called a server cluster, 3 servers, switches, and a storage facility. It was in the neighborhood of the same request as this, cost-wise. We said this is going to last us 5 years. 5 years later, here I am to replace it. This is the heart of the network. This is the storage space and the servers that serve all the departments. So the why now? A couple reasons. One, it's our 5-year replacement schedule. 2, the one we have is out of storage. And 3, it's out of warranty, and the software on it is out of license. We don't feel like paying for the warranty on 5-year-old equipment and paying for new licenses for software that's outdated. So it all winds up to being time to replace this piece of equipment. We've gone with Dell. We went with Dell 6 years ago. We have a Dell team we work with. It's been a very good relationship. It's not exclusive. We don't have any contracts with them per se about exclusivity. We can buy from HP or Lenovo or whomever, but for big projects like this, we've leaned toward their expertise. They've come through for us. So in terms of what I put in the packet, they presented a couple different solutions. One is called a 3-2-1. That's basically replacing exactly what we have now. We went with their other solution, similar in cost. It's called hyperconvergence, without getting too much into the weeds, but it's basically 5 servers all stacked on top of each other, all intermingle, all intertalk, and share space. It is the quote-unquote state-of-the-art in terms of server clusters.
World class, right?
I hope so. We expect this solution to be solid for at least 5 years, as was the last. It's being purchased under state contract pricing. They priced 2 contracts for me. One is the My Deal, and the other one is called My Heck, which is Michigan higher education contract that we can also purchase off from. So the My Heck, it just priced out lower for whatever reason. We do have plans for the retired equipment, setting that up as a, well, it's going to go in a lot of different places, but it's also going to be a backup platform for us. That's what I've got in terms of the weeds. Like I said, I can answer any questions about it. It's a big number, a war coat. I realize that, but
So this is the backbone of our information technology system?
absolutely.
Okay.
5 years from now, who knows? You know, many of the softwares are going to something called SaaS, which is software as a service, where it sits up in the internet somewhere on a server and you don't know where it is. The Register of Deeds recently switched over to, and the clerks switched over to that model. That's the only one so far that we don't house a server on. I can see that happening more and more in the future, but in our position right now, certainly for the next 5 years. 5 years from now, I guess what I'm saying is we may not have to do this again because we may not need all this processing power because it will reside in the cloud, but at least one more time.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Gibson? Commissioner Smelker?
No questions.
Commissioner Getty? Commissioner Campbell?
I don't have any questions. I'm not knowledgeable enough to really understand what Dave's talking about here, but I do know that short time I've been here, we've had a really good system going, and I really count on Dave if he says this is what's going on. I fully support that.
Commissioner Jackson?
Is Dell also going to help us with the migration, old system to new system? Is that in the contract
Yeah,
that they
very
put
much
everything
so.
through?
Very much so. They will send someone here do
Okay.
the install. sit
No
down.
problems when you did this the last 5 years?
No. I think we've got some equipment, other than one major power outage, that ice storm maybe 3 years ago. Some of this stuff has not been rebooted since we bought it.
Oh, wow.
'Cause you don't want to if you don't need to, you know. So I think our track record has been pretty good.
Awesome. And I see, just in the notes, that you had mentioned that the price tag was similar 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, and so it's 100,000 has been budgeted,
Yes.
needs to be increased by 113,577?
I have some notes on that. I didn't mention that. So the original capital request, when I was doing the budget, I put 100K in as a placeholder and didn't go back to that line item. Certainly, I knew at the time it was going to cost more than that. I didn't know how much more. And I turned it in without updating that. And then after I did that, I knew it was going to be something that I should talk about, which I have notes here for. The other thing with this is it includes 5 years of software and hardware support and warranty. So last time we purchased, those numbers we paid for annually, whereas this year they're putting them in upfront. So knock on wood, our out-of-pocket costs for the next 5 years for this system are free and clear up front. So that's another reason why it's substantially more. The other reason is that Microsoft is always a big chunk of that. Microsoft licensing, $43,000. That number is not negotiable or bargainable, or no matter where you buy that, and you have to have it. That's the price. So that was somewhat my fault for not putting enough in the capital budget.
Okay. That makes sense. I just saw that if we knew what it was going to be 5 years ago, why wasn't that in the capital budget to be in the 215,000
It should have been.
range?
No, I didn't know. I didn't know maybe within $25,000 what it was going to be, but I knew it was going to be more than 100. So, yeah.
And this takes care of pretty much all of our hardware needs, software support.
From a central processing standpoint, yes. I mean, there's still the networking side of things. PCs, desktops, those types of things. But those types of things we typically buy one at a time, two at a time, and we take those out of our budget. From a capital budget standpoint, yes. We do have the seam to buy, but it's in the capital budget, and it's not going to approach anywhere near what these numbers are.
Okay. And there were no other quotes on the project per se. You've been using Dell. They're familiar with us. We're familiar with them. So,
Right, and like I said, it's already been bid out in terms of the state contract. Our last go-around, we did meet with several different people and went that route. This time around, it's just going to be, we feel it's just going to be better. That migration is just going to be better if it's the same vendor that we've already had success with, so.
thank you.
Vice Chair Connor?
No, thank you. Nice job,
Thank you.
David. Aaron?
Hearing no further discussion, the question before the committee is to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval to purchase the server infrastructure solution as presented in a quote from Dell Incorporated for a total cost of $213,576.24, including hardware and software licensing, with funds to be paid from the Data Processing Fund, and to increase the budget line item E637258980050 Computer Capital in the Data Processing Fund by $113,577. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next, we have an item from Thornapple Manor. I believe the county administrator will be presenting that. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached Consumers Energy Easement Agreement between the county and Consumers Energy, and authorize the county administrator to sign the agreement and related attachments.
So moved. Second.
That motion is made by Getty, supported by Connor. Discussion. Good morning, Michael. Thanks, Aaron.
Good morning, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. I wished I could have brought some warm weather, but I said there wasn't any warm weather down there to bring, so I just left the cold weather there. Yeah, this is a request from Thornapple Manor, Don Haney specifically to approve a consumer's energy easement to provide service to Harvest Point. Thank you, John. To Harvest Point. The easement is just an easement to provide gas for the gas line to go in. We've had it reviewed by the attorney, make sure that the legalese are okay. Our attorney's fine with it. Don has reviewed it to make sure that it's okay from a physical perspective where the easements are, and they're fine with it. So we would just ask that the county board approve the easement as well.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
Isn't there somebody here from Consumers Energy?
I don't think anyone's here from consumers. Hearing no questions or comments, the question before the committee is to recommend the Board of Commissioners approval of the attached Consumers Energy easement agreement between the county and Consumers Energy, and to authorize the county administrator to sign the agreement and related attachments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next item comes from Commissioner Connor. This time the chair to entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2204, a resolution amending the Berry County Board of Commissioners Rules of Procedure and Regulations.
I make that motion?
Is there support?
I'll support it for discussion.
Motion is made by Connor, supported by Smelker. Discussion. So, Vice Chair Connor, you are proposing amending the rules. Want to swap? Why don't you walk us through what you're proposing?
This is basically the same agenda item that was brought forth in February of 2020. I had to think about how to say that. I keep saying 2002. I don't know why I'm doing that. I changed a little bit. We talked about looking at this later at the organizational meeting. I've done some research that I've shared with Michael and Ben. I've talked to Ben, and it was his recommendation to bring it at this cow cycle, board cycle. The only thing that I changed was basically in number 4. Second line, the chairperson shall call to order any person who is behaving in a disorderly manner.
I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ben. Basically, the only thing that I changed, the chairperson shall call to order any person who is behaving in a disorderly manner. And then the thing I changed was I added such as but not limited to. And then I didn't change anything in there. It was things that were recommended to us 2 years ago by our attorney, until you get down to the third line from the bottom, which conduct substantially interrupts, delays, or disturbs the peace and good order of the proceeding of the board. Let me see. Excuse me. Yep. And basically, we have to get our jobs done. And so that, or disturbs the peace and good order of the proceedings of the board. That was the only thing that I added to this that was brought forward 2 years ago. I brought that forward based on some literature that I downloaded, recommendations from, and they are in there. Costa Mesa, California. Sorry about that. Costa Mesa, California. And it was language that the courts out there have found, that little, what I just read about our proceedings, that was found very approvable by their courts out there. The other thing I did was I emailed, when we've had trainings before on parliamentary procedures or Robert's Rules of Orders, we've usually had people from the Michigan State Extension. So there's a function on there through them to ask a question. So I asked the question, and that is included in your packet. Where did this come from? This you addressed the chair. And the person's name is Eric Walcott. The basis of the statement does come from Robert's Rules of Orders 312, which I couldn't find 312, so the newest edition. So I ordered the book and got it from Amazon. I ordered it on Friday and got it on Saturday. And I have a copy here that I printed out of that for the commissioners. But Mr. Walcott goes on to say, and is the basis for decorum during meetings of a deliberative assembly. A member of a board who wishes to speak in debate or for any other reason is recognized by the presiding office and speaks to the chair. This practice enables the chair to facilitate the meeting in a fair and formal manner. I believe that this best practice has been adopted as a good rule for engaging with the public during the public comment time of open meetings of a public body. Speaking to the chair allows the chair to manage public comment decorum and allows the presiding officer to facilitate the meeting to maintain order for some of the reasons you mentioned as well as others. So I did make a copy of 312 out of the book. I made it this morning because I did get the book on Saturday. And it says members address, and basically it's talking about us. And what Mr. Walcott is saying is that these are the rules that we follow for good decorum, and he believes that that's why this is such a common practice for the public to address the chair, because it's just good manners in a public meeting. So members address only the chair or address each other through the chair in the parliamentary transaction of business within a latitude appropriate to the conditions of a particular body. Members generally should try to avoid mentioning other members' names whenever the person involved can be described in some other way, as in, Mr. President, may I ask the member to explain? Or, Mr. Chairman, I hope that the gentleman who last spoke will think of the probable consequences. With a very limited number of particular exceptions, and except in committees and small boards, a member never speaks while seated, which is something that we don't practice, but...
Yeah, it's never practiced, really.
Yeah. And with a slightly larger number of exceptions, a member does not speak without first having obtained the floor, as described in 3:30:35, which is why you'll see us raise our hands, to get permission to speak on something when we're in discussion. So, like I said, basically, the only thing I added was the part about not limited to, and then about, it's just decorum. It's the same agenda item that we brought forward after we asked our attorney, and it was his recommendation. This is his recommendation. So, we talked about it, again, at the organizational meeting, but Bruce was absent, and we said we'd talk about it later in the year, so I asked it to be brought forward again.
All right, thank you. So before we dive into each one of these 5 items, what are the board's thoughts on amending our board rules? Commissioner Getty? If you don't have anything to say at this point.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Smelker?
I guess my question is there anything in this that you don't already have the power to do as chair?
All right, let's look under Honestly, it actually makes my job a little bit harder, or actually quite a bit harder, under Section 2. Persons may address the board only on matters or issues which are relevant and germane to county government. That historically has been a very difficult thing to enforce, and I don't support putting that in there. But with the question on, your question is, does this provide any powers that I don't currently have? I think, no, it doesn't, but it does clarify or lay out what powers I already have. So the answer is, it doesn't add any new powers, but it does make my job a little harder, specifically enforcing number 2.
And if I read that right, you shouldn't use I.
Yes.
You should use the chair.
Yes, yes, it would limit the chair's power. It would, yeah.
Yeah.
The member is correct. Commissioner Gibson?
They've been working all these years. I don't see that much difference.
Commissioner Jackson?
You know, I don't mind minor changes or updates. I don't see this being anything major. I guess my question was more, on one hand, we're talking about Robert's rules, and I guess it's Robert's rules versus what the Open Meeting Act actually says, because as Ben just said, there are things in Robert's rules that we don't practice. So there are a lot of things out there that you can say this is decorum, this is how it should work by Robert's rules, but we're not doing them anyways. So, and I think our chair and our board has been very flexible with public comment, allowing people a little extra time, allowing people a little leeway when needed. So we haven't exactly been hard on people, you know. So I think the as long as it doesn't create an issue where we're putting in more controversy between what Robert's Rule says and what the Open Meeting Act says is protected speech. So,
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Campbell?
I have nothing pertaining to that, except that anything that would help the chair's position in this, I think I'd be in favor of. So I guess I'm in the middle of the road on this one.
Yeah. So let's walk through each of these items. So
May I say something?
yes.
The reason that this was drawn up 2 years ago was to make our board rules more clearer. It wasn't really meant to change a lot. It was just the recommendations so that the board rules would be clear. And I know that we've been asked, that other groups have been asked to make sure that the board rules are clear about what can and cannot happen during different, not just public comment, but anywhere.
Right. So let's walk through each of these 5 sections. Number 1, anyone who desires to speak under subsections B, 1, G, and S of Article 4, limited public comment shall be limited no more than 3 minutes per individual, and at the times designated as stated above, except when extended privileges are granted by the chairperson. That is not controversial. That's just clarifying. Number 2, persons may address the board only on matters or issues which are relevant and germane to the county government. Having this in there is a significant enough change that I would oppose this proposal. And I would hope the board would be open to removing it, because it's the people that choose what issues are relevant and germane to the county government. If the public is coming up here and wanting us to act, it's their voice. And if we're pursuing these changes just to provide clarity, then I think this goes against that hope, because it's going to be up to me to determine whether what they're talking about is worthy of the board's time. So I would strongly encourage removing this item. Number 3, each person who speaks shall direct his or her comments to the chairperson. That's pretty clear. I don't have any issues with that. Number 4, the chairperson shall call to order any person who's behaving in a disorderly manner, such as but not limited to speaking or otherwise disrupting the proceedings, but failing to be germane, speaking longer than the allotted time, by speaking vulgarities, making comments that are intimidating, threatening, harassing, or disrespectful, or by making comments directed at a member of the public, which conduct substantially interrupts, delays, or disturbs the peace and good order of the proceedings of the board. Such person shall thereupon be seated till the chairperson shall determine whether the person is in order. I think this brings clarity to pretty much what the policy is now. Vice Chair Connor, do you want to comment on the need for this item? Or I guess any other items we discussed previously?
No, as I said, you know, these were all things that were recommended by the attorney 2 years ago. So, I mean, I think it just gives a very good, clear definition.
Number 5, if a person engaged in limited public comment shall be ruled out of order, he or she shall not be permitted to speak further at the same meeting upon special leave of the board. That language, I caution putting in the board because I don't know if it goes against the Open Meetings Act. If somebody is ruled out of order, do they vacate their right to speak on the board on issues? I would err on the side of caution and not remove them from the room. If somebody has a slip of the tongue and they're ruled out of order, does that negate their right to speak? If a person shall continue to be disorderly and to disrupt the meeting, the chairperson may order the sergeant at arms, who shall be the county sheriff or any of his deputies, to remove the person from the meeting. No person shall be removed from the public meeting except an actual breach of the peace committed at the meeting. So to summarize my concerns as chair, I would really oppose adding item 2 into the board rules, as it makes this job extraordinarily difficult, but also eliminates a vital connection between us and the public. My number 2 concern is number 5, if a person engaged in limited public comment shall be ruled out of order, he or she shall not be permitted to speak further. I don't know if that's legal. Those are my only concerns. I appreciate any endeavors to bring clarity to the board rules, but I'd like to hear what the board would like to see. I'm going to let the board speak on this, and then I'll recognize individuals from the public. So, Commissioner Campbell?
I would agree with the removal of number 2. I do think that puts undue burden on the chairman. Number 5, I would have to have some kind of a opinion on that or something, as I'm not sure on that one either. So that's all I have.
Mr. Jackson?
I would concur that I would remove item 2, and in item 3, I would also remove by failing to be germane. That one part of that, and in item 5, I think you could almost remove the first sentence. If a person is engaged in limited public comment shall be ruled out of order, he or she shall not be permitted to speak further at the same meeting except upon special leave of the board. If you remove that item and replace that with, if a person is out of order or continues to be disorderly during a meeting, then I don't know that we should necessarily take away somebody's right for public comment.
Right.
However, if they are disorderly, disruptive, you know, I think we have witnessed a few times where that may have been a good rule to have in place. And, you know, so I don't mind the second part of that. I just think it needs to be adjusted and take out the first.
And an actual breach of the peace is a violation of state law, so you can be removed from that. I'm going to come back to Vice Chair Connor. Commissioner Gibson?
Not at this time.
Commissioner Smelker?
I agree with taking out number 2. I would leave number 3 in. If anything on number 3, they should speak directly to the board. If they want to speak directly to me, you know, that ain't gonna bother me. But also, I agree with David on number 5. First sentence, I think, should be, if someone gets carried away and gets disorderly, they calm down and second public comment comes up. I think that's up to the chair.
Yeah. Thank you. Commissioner Getty?
I would agree with removing number 2, with Commissioner Jackson's suggestion of removing by failing to be germane in number 4, and his suggestion again, the first sentence of number 5. But I think we need to proceed carefully. I value hearing public opinion, whether we agree with it or not. Sometimes people are not used to, familiar with speaking in public, and they do get a little out of hand. I mean, it takes a lot for them to come to a meeting at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, and sometimes their adrenaline is pumping.
Yeah.
So I would not be in favor of one strike and not allowing them to speak.
Right.
I definitely feel that way too, because there's things in here that I violate.
Yeah, yeah. I could have thrown you
I'm
out.
at you
I could have
anytime,
thrown you out, a long time ago. Vice Chair Connor, what are your thoughts after hearing the feedback from the board?
I have no problem with the germane. As I said, this is the recommendation that was brought forth 2 years ago. When I read the rules on number 4, I read this like a instruction manual. So number 4, and it says, such person shall thereupon be seated until the chairperson shall have determined whether the person is in order, period. And then number 5, if a person engaged shall be ruled out of order, in other words, they're not in order, he or she shall not be permitted to speak further at the same meeting, except upon special leave of the board. So I read that as, if number 4 happens, okay, and they're asked to be seated until the chair has determined, and then number 5, if that determination was that the person was out of order. So I read it like an instruction manual. That's how I read it. This, again, was from our attorney. We could get back with him. I don't know. It's at the board's pleasure. It's just that I think that it was a good time to bring this forward again. So that I'm just trying to tell you how I see it. So, I mean, I can't think that they would have given us something that was not legal.
So with the
Or we can change it.
asking an individual to sit down while the chair determines whether they're in order. So I, more than any other chair probably on this board, have had to deal with this issue. Usually if they're, I have ruled somebody out of order, they're standing at the podium, and, you know, the gavel signals that they're out of order. And that brings people, kind of brings the meeting, you know, to a standstill, and then there's a short discussion until we can get back in order. But it's the refusal to sit down is the bigger thing. So I don't think they would sit down if we're into these type of issues. So I understand the reasoning for them, but practicality, I don't know if it would work. So I see where we're coming from these. It probably would be good to provide clarity. I just don't know how we list it in number 4 and 5. So what are the board's wishes? Yes. Individuals from the public may speak on this. Yes. You can come up to the microphone.
Larry Bass, Carlton Township. 2 years ago, I got into the school.
Thanks, you got a soft
Thank
voice.
you.
You got a soft voice.
Well, I've got a voice that's dying. But 2 years ago, I got in this deeper than I wanted to, and I've got like probably 2,000 pages of inconsequential data at home to talk about that. Item 2, it's your boat to float. But I will tell you that 5 out of the 6 counties that surround us have language in their rules that pertain to the topics should be germane and pertain to county business. Okay, there's also a Attorney General's opinion from Frank Kelly that indicates that also, and I'd be more than happy to bring that. I'm a little unprepared for this, but to the next meeting. As far as being out of order, the Ninth Court of Appeals and that bastion of conservative thought in California had ruled a number of years ago that you can expel somebody from the meeting for being out of order. I can bring that case to you, so you know if you even care to look at that next week also. And then there's a number of other things that are touched on in here that there are Supreme Court rulings that talk about that. And I would suggest that your attorney is probably familiar with that and probably needs to explore that. I can bring all that data next week if you care to hear it. If not, that's fine. Like I said, it's your boat to float. But I've heard us talking about openness, being open to the public. I would also recommend that, and I'm not really going to do this yet, but there's a statement from a former Attorney General that states that you are allowed to interact with the speakers during public comment sections, and the 3 minutes would be controlled by that person right there, the chair, on that. So that's one of the things that we hear, and I'm really tired of hearing this, frankly, is people come up and they say you don't listen, you don't respond, and I've got a tendency to agree with that. Now, the responses may be in private, but I sure as heck don't hear them stated in public, like Ivory Snow percent of the time. So, like I said, I got into this. There's a number of Supreme Court rulings that talk about the cases we're talking about right now, or the situation we're talking about. There's a number of circuit court rulings. New York Times versus Sullivan comes into play, and such. So my recommendation is you do a little bit more investigation. As a person in the public, I see nothing wrong with anything that's up here. So my goal of coming here today was to offend everybody in the room, and I hope I've done that. But that's all I have to say about that. I'd recommend holding off until a little bit more investigation is done. I think there's nothing wrong with what's here as far as I'm concerned, but that's just one vote out of 61,783.
All right, so, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this item?
Hello, Adam Michaela. This kind of is what I've been talking about all along, is our participation at the meetings, and the way the board interacts and responds or not responds and with the public. The whole germane, I like what your thoughts on it, Ben. I agree that it leaves too much up to you and your determinations. That's a lot of pressure. Already we got a lot of pressure on the chair. Doing this might put a little bit more pressure, a little bit more point. I agree that everything should go to the chair. I've been in that position, and I understand that to keep civil order in a meeting that could be contentious, could get a little passionate, it's important for the chair to have that control of the room. But it is important that at that time that the chair also follows the right rules and does not go out of bounds of the rules and stretch those rules, which I think that we might have seen a little bit over the time. I just wanted to share, though, that it is important to remember as well that these meetings are for this connection with the public. They're supposed to encourage and to to bring about ideas from the public. You all are not supposed to be just the leaders above and separate from the public. You are to be extensions and representatives, as stated in the Attorney General opinion back in 1976. This is some of the questions from that opinion. S. Martin Taylor was a director of Michigan Employment Security Commission at the time, said, may a public body other than the legislature limit the use of time by public attendees with respect to their length of address to the public body. It is my opinion that a public body may limit the time that a person may address the public body. The regulation, however, must be reasonable, flexible, and applied in a manner which will encourage greater public participation rather than discourage the exercise of the right of the public to address the meeting. So the whole point is to address that. And I was reading last night the most recent 2022 Open Meetings Act handbook from Dana Nessel. And on page 13, then, it talks about limited public comment. It says a public body may adopt a rule imposing individual time limits for members of the public addressing the public body. In order to carry out its responsibilities, the board can also consider establishing rules allowing the chairperson to encourage groups to designate one or more individuals to speak on behalf of a rule limiting the period of public comment may not be applied in a manner that denies a person the right to address the public body. So any discussion or talks of saying that if someone does something at our meeting, we're going to say you no longer have a right to speak at our meeting, I mean, that's just that's an Open Meetings Act right in the handbook in itself, I think. So remember, any rules that you're going to make or change, you should be understanding how are you going to encourage more people to come, okay? Because more rules, more regulations, more definitions, and trying to do that is really just a discouragement. It truly is. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there further comment on this item? Hearing none, what are the board's wishes? Commissioner Jackson.
I would like to see some of that information from Mr. Bass, if he would be so kind as to give us some of that for review. I don't see this as a hot burner item that has to be decided on today. So I would, if the board agrees, I would make a motion that we table this until the next COW. Give us a chance to go through some of this information and have a further discussion.
Commissioner Jackson has moved that the question be tabled until the next COW. Is there support?
Yes, I'll support it.
The motion postpone has been supported by Commissioner Gibson. Is there any discussion on postponement? Vice Chair Connor?
Thank you. Sorry, my pen got snagged on my sweater. we may have some of the information that Mr. Bass has talked about, and I could work with Michael to see if those items are in the packet that was given to us by our attorney.
Great, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the question before the committee is on postponement of the item until the next COW. Clerk, call the roll.
Campbell.
Aye.
Connor.
Aye.
Getty.
Aye.
Gibson.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Smelker.
Aye.
Geiger.
Aye, the item is postponed. All right, moving ahead. Limited public comment. This time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes.
Hello,
Morning.
my name is Dane Hoffman. I live in the city of Lowell, so outside of Berry County, but I am running for state representative in the new district that will be represented, or that I would represent parts of Berry County. So I just wanted to introduce myself today. Thank you for the opportunity to come up and introduce myself, and thank you for your service. Very briefly, I'm a principled conservative. What that means to me is I will fight for limited, responsible, and local government. That means I'll fight for constitutional rights, and that means I'll fight for the sanctity of life. So it's a very brief introduction. Appreciate the opportunity. Would love to, get to know you more as time goes on. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to speak to you this morning. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
What was his name?
Dane Hoffman.
Dana?
Dane, D-A-Y-N-E.
Hi, Adam Michael again. I just want to talk, heard some about, checking with the attorneys and the attorneys and the attorneys, and I went to the Hastings School Board last night and talked about that, some things with them, and they, Ben, that's what they always do, is we rely on the attorneys, Why don't we just get everyone elected and then have the attorney that's hired come up here and just do the votes and things? Because unfortunately, our governing bodies everywhere right now, we rely and fall back solely on the attorneys. We don't have people that are putting in the time to truly understand all of these laws. They don't even read most of the laws. They don't even read the ARPA, the whole law, right? We asked at the meeting, didn't we, Ben? We asked, did anybody read the entire law? Not anyone. Oh, I think 2 people, part of the nonprofit groups that are supposed to understand the law so that they can control those funds, because that's what they're doing. They read the law, but our elected officials, not a member of your board, Ben, had read that law that you guys voted on. And so why not just have the attorney come, Ben? Why not just have the attorney make all the decisions? That's what we do. Why do we do that? Why do we allow that? Why do you as a chair member not address that and say, hey, we need to make these decisions and not completely rely on our attorney to tell us what we can and can't do on some of these things that is basic laws. We have the laws written in a way that we can all read and understand them. I am not that smart. I don't think I'm all that intelligent. I think that I just read these things and it's basic. And I see something that makes a question and I ask a question. But when I come to boards like yours to ask the questions, we don't get the answers because you then fall back on your attorney that tells you. Well, my position, when I was in your position, and I had to deal with my attorney in my township, I asked him questions. And guess what? Because he was politically connected and made decisions based off politics, he was allowing things illegally to happen in my own township. I have the evidence still of all of that. The emails that proves that. So I had to explain this to a board member, Dan, last night from the Hastings School Board is all. Because he was one person that actually discussed something with me afterwards, and we had a great discussion. And I got through to him to understand that we have attorneys that are doing things wrong. And if we have people that don't even understand the whole system of power that's destroying our communities, and we fall back on our attorneys to make the decisions for us, we're just going to continue to be really in a bad place. So it's imperative that you all really do more work, more homework, and make the decisions, not fall back on people like your attorneys. Thank you.
Is there further public comment?
Hi, Pat Jameson, Bowens Mills. I'd just like to talk about the current state of COVID right now. We're still at a high level. We're at from 2/8/22 positivity rate of 38.7. Now, back when the imminent danger thing was put on, back in, what was that, August, it was at 14.9. We currently have the health department handing out KN95 masks. Those are not N95. They're not even recommended for medical personnel. So, just kind of wondering, by the numbers it seems worse, but now no one appears wearing a mask. Just wondering. Thank you.
Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we've reached the end of our meeting. Is there any objection to adjourning? Hearing no objection, the committee is now adjourned.